corruption is certainly an important thing, and how India fights corruption is extremely important. In a given ideal situation, there should be no objection to anyone. But the opposition has raised this objection, and in many respects, it has the element of truth in it. That despite reminding the government again and again, the cases against certain people just do not move; they are frozen. It's not that it was not being done earlier also. Why not have all these corruption cases? Because that is the bone of contention. That is the real problem between the opposition and the central government. That let the cases of corruption against TL be supervised not by the CVC, but it should be supervised by the Lokpal. And I think nobody should have objection, because Lokpal has the powers to investigate the highest in the land. I do not see any legal or constitutional infirmity in this particular area, that the CBI should be allowed to investigate cases of corruption everywhere, wherever the central funds are involved. It's, of course, depends on how effective the democracy is, that all the cases of corruption are pursued with the same vigor and not differentially looking into the political alignments. I don't think opposition should oppose the entry of specialists into CBI, and I don't think there are many police officers who would oppose this either.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. A parliamentary panel has recommended legislation to allow the Central Bureau of Investigation to probe matters of national security and integrity without requiring consent from state governments, as part of reforms that are likely to be politically controversial. The second suggestion, which has been given by the parliamentary panel, is to allow lateral entry to the central agency for specialists. And of course, this could be a measure which will attract accusations of trying to bypass reservations. And the third proposal for the CBI is to raise its own cadre through national recruitment agencies, just on the lines of what you see in IAS. So the biggest question now is, that will these reforms strengthen CBI or will they weaken the CBI? Will they enhance the hold of the central government on the bureaucrats? What will be the impact in general on the bureaucracy? Does it really shake up the foundations of bureaucracy? That's what the question we need to find out answers for. And joining me now this evening is former IPS officer, someone who's been a security expert, former intelligence officer, Yashovardhan Azad joins us this evening. Mr. Azad, thank you so much for joining on HW. And my first question, of course, is these reforms which are being brought about in CBI. And I'll begin with this legislation, a separate legislation to allow CBI to probe matters of national security and integrity. Do we actually need a separate legislation?
Well, in the current situation, when most of the states have, 9 states, or all the opposition states have withdrawn their consent. And that's because of a particular reason, which we know, that they have been complaining that the cases against the opposition are being pursued vigorously. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Cases of corruption should be due. But the problem is that other cases which were instituted against the powers that be, who are in the ruling party, or those who have shifted from the opposition, are not being pursued in a same vigorous manner. So in that respect, because they feel that CBI is following a differential policy in pursuing cases of corruption, that is why they feel that it will attack the federal structure if you try and bring in legislation. Now, I have a solution, and I also can quote a precedent that without the legislation, I don't remember the judgment, uh, which case it is, but High Court has certainly given a judgment in one particular case that how are we going to, investigate cases of corruption, or how are we going to fight corruption in the country if the CBI is not allowed to investigate corruption of cases indulged in by the central employees when they are located in the various states. So, taking that as a precedent, I think the CBI can certainly lodge cases after the preliminary inquiry and go ahead with that. Secondly, the solution which I have is that why not have all these corruption cases? Because that is the bone of contention. That is the real problem between the opposition and the central government. That let the cases of corruption against EL be supervised not by the CVC, but it should be supervised by the Lokpal. And I think nobody should have objection, because Lokpal has the powers to investigate the highest in the land. In fact, CJI is going to hear a case of a judge's case being looked into by the Lokpal. So, in that respect, this would be a very good idea, and there would be no problem. There are, of course, other cases also with implications on national security. Corruption certainly corrodes democracy. Corruption certainly impacts national security. In that respect, there are other cases also, like cattle smuggling, etc. So I would say, because it's a very contentious issue, let these two things, use the High Court case and also let it be supervised by the Lokpal. And I think the matter could be resolved without a legislation.
But do you think that there is a fine line, which one needs to understand here? Because we are going to matters of national security and intelligence, which of course is open to a lot of misuse. And if it is happening in the opposition ruled states, how does one, ward away that criticism? Because there might be misuse by the bureaucrats themselves. And now, since we'll have a separate legislation on this bit, I don't know how the response will be from the opposition ruling states. I'm sure they will challenge it, probably, because there is a no go zone. There are some 8 states which already have refused the general consent to the CBI. So how is it really going to pan out? If there is a legislation, how will these national security issues be probed through a separate legislation?
See, a bulk of cases which which have direct implication on national security, that is terrorism, is being investigated by the NIA, which has a jurisdiction across the country. So we already have taken care of one important. Corruption is certainly an important thing, and how India fights corruption is extremely important. In a given ideal situation, there should be no objection to anyone. But the opposition has raised this objection, and in many respects, it has the element of truth in it, that despite reminding the government again and again, the cases against certain people just do not move. They are frozen. It's not that it was not being done earlier also. I can tell you that even CBI, in their corruption cases, because of political alignments which are shifting, the cases against certain leaders would be frozen in time. So that has been a problem with the CBI. So in that respect, I think there is a truth. It is also true that once a legislation like this is passed, it will run into problems, in the sense that a lot of these states, each of these 8 states, will go to the Supreme Court saying that there is a problem. Though I do not see any legal or constitutional infirmity in this particular area, that the CBI should be allowed to investigate cases of corruption everywhere, wherever the central funds are involved. It's, of course, depends on how effective the democracy is, that all the cases of corruption are pursued with the same vigor and not differentially looking into the political alignments.
I'm wondering that if these cases are challenged in the court of law, on what grounds will the court really look into these matters. As you said, there are central fronts. Then why shouldn't the CBI investigate into cases of corruption in the states? But then again, how does one balance it with the federal powers of the state, which the state has? And is it not an attack on the federal structure? I'm sure the states will say that. So how will there be a balance? And I don't know, because obviously this law, if it comes in, it will undergo a lot of scrutiny. There'll be a lot of suggestions coming in from the opposition ruling states as well. But I'm just looking at the possibility this legislation will be ramrodded. It will be brought in because of course, there's majority in the parliament. And then what happens? How is the court really going to deal with it? How will the opposition ruling states deal with it?
As I said earlier, Neelu, I don't see any legal infirmity in bringing this kind of a bill, because it's a central fund, CBI is empowered, it fights corruption, and therefore it should be allowed. Now, the problem is reining in the CBI or directing the CBI, and to ensure that it investigates all the corruption cases fairly. So, for that, there has to be a separate kind of a directive. And that would be that the opposition states can push that they should not be, these cases of corruption should not be pursued or overseen by CVC, because CVC has been ineffective. It must be something like a Lokpal, which should do a fair work and do a fair supervision in all the corruption cases.
Mr. Azad, you said that CVC is ineffective. CBI also looks ineffective because it's like a caged parrot, and not once but many times the court has commented on it. So will these reforms, whichever reforms, these 3 or 4 proposals which have come in, will they reform the image of CBI, from being a caged parrot?
No, certainly not. Certainly not. That's exactly what I said, that there is an element of truth in what the opposition is saying. There's no doubt about that. In fact, if you're bringing in legislation, you're doing exactly the same thing. You're giving CBI the powers, and the investigation will continue in the same manner. So that is why, unless the CBI investigation is supervised by somebody like a Lokpal, the results will be the same. And that is where I feel what will happen. Parliament will go into uproar, right? Legislation will be passed in the uproar, with irrespective of what the opposition says. The matters will go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will take time for about 3 months. In the meantime, this issue will go on. So sagacity would say that there has to be an equal speed of prosecution for all the corruption cases in the country. I just hope that this sagacity comes to the powers that be, that they allow this at least.
I'll go back to the point where you were talking about NIA already looking into the cases of national security. Now, will it not be amounting to duplicity of work? Like, if you have given one enforcement agency a job to do that, why give that additional power to CBI? And how does it help the cause?
Because, NIA is only dealing with the terror cases, threat to the country and, causing disunity and, public order being disturbed. So NIA has the powers, and basically now there is no objection to it also, because every state would also like to fight terrorism with the help of center. No state would like to, do it on its own, because, you need a lot of capability, you need a lot of intelligence and things like that. Corruption is different. In corruption, whenever you are, corruption is something which is happening blatantly everywhere. Let's face it, corruption is a huge fight. And that's why there has to be an agency like CBI, which is absolutely fair, which strikes down at all the corruption cases fairly. The problem remains the same, that if you are, one set of cases are being pursued by the CBI, and, even those set of cases, you'll have to see the conviction percentage is very, very low in corruption cases. There is already a problem. And CBI also has a problem of shortage of hands. There are so many cases they have taken that they can't pursue with the same speed. So this problem cannot be solved by a legislation. I mean, that's absolutely true. As I've said, High Court case is already there. And second, let it be supervised by the Lokpal. The problem will be, even-handed then, solution.
I'll come on to the second proposal, and that is on the lateral entry. And what the parliamentary panel has actually said that CBI should introduce lateral entry for specialists in cybercrime, forensics, financial fraud, and legal domains. This is what the panel says, venturing into a domain that has been a no-go for the opposition. Now, how does lateral entry really help? Or will it not lead to a lot of heartburn amongst other bureaucrats? Does it strengthen the CBI as an organization?
See, first thing, let me say at the very outset, Neelu, what is good for the country we should do. I don't think opposition should oppose the entry of specialists into CBI. And I don't think there are many police officers who would oppose this either. Adding cybersecurity experts, adding forensic science experts, adding legal luminaries, I mean, they'll only add teeth to CBI investigation and prosecution. There should be no objection. See, the bureaucracy is different. Bureaucracy, the bureaucrats don't want anybody to come. I mean, in fact, today it is a system in India of Neta guided bureaucracy. Everything is controlled by bureaucracy. So they don't want anyone to come from outside, and as fresh blood. Even the guys who have come, some of them have left. They're not doing any substantial work. They're still working as consultants, which there are so many in any case in world programs and things like that. So CBI, being a specialist organization, must accept specialists. It will be a very, very good thing. Yes, a few posts here and there of IPS may go. It doesn't matter. We should do what is in the interest of the country. In fact, if you look at the bureaucracy, we cannot compare. Look at Niti Aayog. It's headed by a Babu. Another entry is of a Babu. There are so many Babus already there. And how does it make any difference unless you get a technocrat, an expert, a scientist who brings a fresh blood into it, fresh thinking into it. Otherwise, it remains the same. So I would say in case of CBI, it's a welcome trend. Let it not be a welcome trend in bureaucracy. And I don't think any kind of lateral entry scheme will succeed in bureaucracy in this country the way it is there right now, and the way the complete reliance of the powers and the Prime Minister office and the other ministries are there depending on the Babus. So it won't change.
But another accusation, and I'm sure is which is expected, is that with the lateral entries you will end up bypassing reservations. Now, the kind of political narrative which is woven around the reservations, that we need more than 65 reservations, percent reservations. Rahul Gandhi talks about jitni abadi utni bhagidari. That's what he says. And now with this lateral entry, I'm sure people will accuse the government of bypassing reservations. How is the government really going to answer on this?
No, there are two things. One, in the CBI, when there is going to be, if you're talking about direct recruitment, which they are planning, then obviously the reservations will be accommodated, right? But in lateral entry, there'll be not so many people. So I don't think there should be a kind of an opposition if there are, because you need experts in the CBI. After all, everybody wants opposition leaders. They want the good for the country. So for the good for the country, if you want to make CBI having more teeth, having more sharpened edge, then you need these guys. You need cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is the biggest bulwark against one of the greatest threats faced by all the countries. It can paralyze your core agency. It can paralyze your ministries. It can paralyze everything. So you have to get that. Plus, you need forensic science. Today is the age of forensic science. So if you don't get them, you're sunk. So I think one should support the lateral entry in the CBI.
No, but if you remember, I think it was last year when the center was forced to ask the Union Public Service Commission to withdraw the advertisements for lateral recruitment to 45 senior posts in various ministries after the opposition alleged that this is a ploy to bypass reservations, and these advertisements in fact had invited resistance from the NDA allies as well. Say, for example, Lok Janshakti Party, the Janata Dal United. I'm just wondering what the government's reaction could be if and I'm sure it will come up.
When this lateral entry was being introduced, I myself was smirking. I realized this is again a roundabout way of doing
Also
it.
at that time, I think we
Yes,
did an interview also at that time. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. For example, if we really want to change the bureaucracy, why don't you get a Montek in Ministry of Finance? Why don't you get the biggest educationist in the Ministry of Education? Why don't you get a retired IPS officer or the senior most serving officer as a Ministry of Home? Basically, you just want to scratch a little bit here and there, and then go about it. So real changes do not come by putting in a few deputy secretaries here and 3 joint secretaries there. Is of no use. And yes, it will be mired with the same kind of opposition also. Reservation bhi laiye, ye bhi laiye. How many of them were anyway brought in, and how many of them have left? You calculate. So
no, but these reform measures, do they look like a sustainable reform measure, or do they look like a band-aid therapy that okay, there are some holes here and there, and we'll try and put a bandage and temporarily just move on with something called a reform measure of the CBI?
No, ideologically, it's a great thing that you're fighting corruption, so CBI should have the powers to investigate the defalcation of central funds everywhere. That's fine. I am saying there's no legal infirmity in it. The point is how you use that power of the CBI. And that is where the objection lies. So if you have a rider with that, yes, we'll bring in this legislation, but we'll also see that all the cases are being pursued vigorously, whether opposition, whether here or there. Then it's fine. So that is why I have suggested
I
that
haven't come across the riders as of now. I haven't come across the riders you're talking about.
So that's why I'm saying that first, you don't need this legislation. Use that High Court decision where it said that CBI should be allowed. Otherwise, how should we fight corruption? And second, have Lokpal guiding all the investigations. See what happens.
Yeah. Okay, now let me come to the third bit of the direct recruitment. Now, the House panel has recommended direct recruitment to core ranks such as the deputy superintendents of police, inspectors, sub-inspectors, through the Staff Selection Commission, Union Public Service Commission, or a dedicated CBI exam. Now, I'm just going to read out because these are some very interesting details. It says that the deputation system has left the agency short-staffed. The reasons including manpower shortages in the state police forces themselves and the lack of incentives for state officers to seek deputation to the CBI. And another problem, and I'm going on reading, it's the panel report says that another problem is the administrative bottlenecks in processing nominations that delay appointments. And to get past these hurdles, the panel has recommended a permanent cadre with structured career progression and an in-house expert team to decrease reliance on outside experts. And they've defined that, how the deputation can be retained. And I'm reading it further. Deputation may be retained only for select senior positions requiring diverse experience, but streamlining recruitment procedure and reforms will help CBI in enhancing operational efficiency and investigative capabilities. It sounds a little humorous, but I really want your explanation on this, Mr. Azad. Yes.
First of all, yeah, it's so hilarious. I don't think it'll see its light through the day. You see, first,
So
I find it very...
So which means you already rejected it.
Yeah, I find it ridiculous because there are very sound principles on which this deputation policy was based, and also why it was a year of deputationists. You will create a state within a state. That means the CBI will become another state, and then you'll have a chief secretary CBI. Then you'll have another, a set of babus, because there'll be so many people to control. There'll be another, CBI secretariat. Nonsense. I mean, what I'm saying is there are two reasons. Okay. First reason say that because deputationists are not coming to CBI. You don't want to create situation favorable enough for deputations with diverse experience from various states to come. You want to become a CBI for only direct recruits. You don't want people from Kerala to Bihar to Madhya Pradesh to Srinagar to be in the CBI with having wide experience. There is a reason why deputationists are there. It gives you a kind of a multi talent and with the area experience who are coming into the CBI. That is why it has been done. So create favorable situations. In CBI, unlike the state, people are working 22 hours a day. I mean, that's not done. You have to create conditions where they can work only 7 to 8 hours a day, focus their energies, have some, interests also, and lead a normal life. That is why they are not coming to CBI, because state is very, very comfortable. And this is not days of only Desh Bhakti Jan Seva, but also being a top-notch professional given all the facilities. Second, the second reason you said is because the administrative process is so complicated. Who's created this administrative process being so complicated? The Babu? The Babus, because they want a job in everywhere. Why do you need to process files? Tell me, a CBI director who's guiding the entire specialized investigation in the country, doesn't he have a right to pick and choose any man? If he wants somebody from Kerala cadre and he says this guy is brilliant, I need him, let it, then he just ask the government, talk to the chief secretary or DGP ki, bhai, can you send him? Please send him because I need him. And it should be done like that in 2 days. Why should you go through this file and secretariat? And if you need an IG, then you go through the whole top secretariat. I don't understand the reason. It doesn't happen like this anywhere. Why should you do it? You have created own third-rate procedures to make it long-winded. You just have to see if the man is good enough. He's not, there's nothing against him. He's not corrupt. He's a good professional. That's all. So these are the two things. Once you do that, there is no problem. There is no need to have a direct entry and create a state within a state.
But if they've already made this proposal as part of the panel and it's part of the report which they have tabled in Parliament, do you think that this bit could face resistance from any quarters within the bureaucratic ranks?
No, the bureaucrats are not interested. I mean, it's only the CBI chief who's going to object. I mean, I don't think he'll allow, taking a direct entry. People who have not had any experience of the state and directly being taken into CBI, then training them for 5 years, and then, exposing them to various parts of the country. For example, investing a case in Kerala is different from investing a case in Gujarat. Things are different. Environment is different. Investigation is not an easy job. I mean, it's a very painstaking job. So it's the kind of talent you have from across the country. You will get that, but who will give them the training? Today, you're getting them after the rich experience in the state. So you're already getting a good. And besides, if there's any problem, you send them back to the states or take whatever you can. If they're already in the cadre, then the whole process is very, very difficult to sort of throw people out in this country. So I think the deputations has a lot of advantages, and I don't think it will easily can be removed from our system.
So all in all, my last question to you is that these reform measures, do they look like a sham? Or do they look like a serious effort to reform CBI? Or is just a pretentious kind of an exercise which gives some sweeping and additional powers to CBI and which will be open to further misuse?
No, I mean, I would say it is an exercise which with certain merits. For example, when they talk of bringing in the specialists, I totally welcome that. I understand the reasons why they have suggested a direct entry, but that can be overcome by giving by the advice which I have given them, by making the process less cumbersome of bringing in deputationists, by creating an ambient environment about the cases powers which the CBI should have. There is a High Court precedent that they can use that. They should have actually suggested that all cases should be pursued in the same manner. And as far as the last question you asked, I think there is a lot of merit in having more specialized. Today, this country needs more specialists. And you see the IITs and the IIMs, they are the ones who is ruling even abroad. And our CEOs are the top notchers from there. And they are in their particular area of domain. So I think the specialization part should not be opposed by the opposition, because it has a lot of merits.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Azad, for joining on HW. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.